Good morning. This is the Bo Benson Show. So, guys, I know you've seen some of my videos, and they're getting pretty aggressive, right? So, when I'm telling you guys that about going to the Kingdom Hall and just beating some elders that are in the CSA, I don't know if people don't like hearing that kind of stuff. Now, I'm not telling people to do that kind of stuff. What I'm trying to present, or what I'm trying to tell you guys, is that those kind of incidents, I'm really surprised have not happened, right? And the reason that they don't happen, or why they don't happen very often, is because of the indoctrination process of the organization and its members, and how they demasculinize men. Now, why would they demasculinize men? Why does the organization want to do that? Well, the organization is doing that because the New World Order wants men to be demasculinized. Because men who are not masculine, they don't defend themselves. They don't protect their families. So then their families are targets for the aristocrats. It's really simple. This has been like this for a very, 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 very long time. If you guys are familiar with history and the class systems, you had your nobles, and then you had your knights, and then you had your peasants. Peasants had no rights, pretty much. Peasants were out there farming. Aristocrats could come in there, take their abuse their daughters, and they couldn't do anything about it. Now, throughout history, though, you do those things to the public. Like, for an example, what happened? Let's look at the one of the more common ones. We think about the movie Braveheart, which a lot of people have seen, where we had English aristocrats doing those things to the Scottish families. Now, what's going to eventually happen is people are going to get tired of that. They're going to uprise and they're going to fight back. The same thing happened in Russia. So if you guys are familiar with Russia's history, at one point they weren't always communistic, right? They had, kings and queens. And what happened is the Russia royal family was so corrupt and was allowing abuse and allowing the nobles to do whatever they wanted. Eventually, the aristocrat families were pulled out of their homes and were killed by the public, and the royal family was obliterated. So just to give you guys some context. So if you want to look up Nicholas II, right? I don't know if this is going to show up very well, but in March 15th, 1917, the royal family was arrested by the Bolsheviks and held in section on July 17, 1918. The Bolshevik murdered Nicholas and his family. So what I'm telling you guys is when you have these hierarchical structures, okay, and you push the public too far, they snap. Now, depending on your level of indoctrination using God, it'll allow you to go so far. But once you cross that limit that people cannot tolerate anymore, they cannot exist anymore, violence will inevitably happen. I know witnesses are not allowed to learn history. I know you guys don't research anything, so you don't know how the Roman Empire works. You didn't know how the Mongols work. You don't know anything about history at all. So you have no understanding of how these ancient societies function, what they do, how they operate, and how leadership is murdered a lot. Because in these ancient cultures, when you have kings and queens or governing bodies that have full control, when things fall apart, it's their fault. And the people will hold them accountable. Now, people are not as violent in this generation as they used to be, because we're not in constant battle, fighting constantly for food and all these other things. Our day-to-day necessities are usually taken care of. So another example is this is like when you watch shows like Star Trek during the Dominion War, there's this episode they talk about how the Federation are so goody two shoes and nice, and then one of the Ferengis says, well, if you take away all their necessities, they're as violent as any Klingon out there. And there's a lot of truth to things like that when you talk about things like that. The reason why I make in such blunt videos and I tell you guys these things to prepare for these things, to warn you these things will happen, is we've had Jehovah Witnesses shootings at, quite a bit go on over the last year or two, let's say. And it's getting to the point where these things are so horrific, they're making it to mainstream media. Most of the time when you had violent actions with Jehovah Witnesses, they would refer to them as church members if it was involving it, and they didn't say Jehovah Witnesses. A lot of people don't realize this. Like, there are lots of witnesses who have snapped and done things like this. My old channel that doesn't exist anymore, and a lot of you guys are wondering why I say that a lot. Well, it's because people who used to, because you remember my old channel had 2,500,000 plus people saw these videos and watched these videos. So we have a pretty small community on my channel right now. I don't even think we have 1,000 people. We're like 800 or something like that. So I don't even have a fifth of what was subscribed to my old channel. So when I relate to these things, the reason I'm doing that is because people who are coming in who recognize me will be like, oh yeah, I remember the XJWs of Arizona channel. Oh, okay, yeah, I remember that video. So I don't have records of all those videos. They're all wiped out. And I never maintained a database because my videos are very like on the day. They're not like put together in like a movie format or a documentary, really. Very few of my episodes are like that. They're very impersonal and me and you talking, right? And that's the way I do it because it's more real that way. And then me just putting this script together. I want you to see me for who I am and what I believe and understand what I'm saying. And you're going to see inaccuracies in there. You're going to see me have thoughts that are different from other people. You're going to see me make claims that could be correct or not. But I want you to understand, like, these are my thoughts, my ideas, my channel. And I'm sharing with you guys to see, hey, this is what I believe. This is what I've seen. This is the evidence. This is how I took that evidence together. Do you agree with me? Yes or no? It's completely up to you. But I want to go back to this, ancient societies that who rise up and then wipe out their leadership. Okay. Why have the Jehovah's Witnesses done this to the governing body? Why have they not removed the governing body? Because they have destroyed their organization, right? The Jehovah's Witnesses are never going to do that. And people are wondering, well, why? The techniques that are used that we discussed, about the brainwashing that goes on in the organization is at a level where their brain has actually been affected developmentally. So let me rephrase this. So their undeveloped brain has been affected by the interactions with the belief systems of the organization to the point where their actual normal brain chemistry has been interfered. And their brain does not function, right, correctly. And people are like, what are you talking about? That doesn't make any sense. If you look at a Jehovah's Witness who is born and raised in the organization from being an infant to now, they do not have critical thinking. They believe things without researching them. Even when they do wake up, and they do, they still have these issues. Not to mention anger problems. It's very, very common for witnesses to have anger issues. It's also common for them to pull away from their feelings and neglect and kind of robotic-like, even with all their relationships. These are all conditionings of Watchtower. And these conditionings were brought to you purposely in order to make you subservient, to be the perfect slave race. Watchtowers, the people who finance Watchtower, because it's a hierarchy structure. So you have the aristocrat families, which are the 13 bloodlines, who actually run the organization. Underneath those bloodlines are the people who work for these individuals, and that's going to be the governing body, the board of directors. So actually, the board of directors is actually above the organization. Okay, so it will go at the top. It's going to be the aristocrat families, the 13 bloodlines. Underneath them is the board of directors, these rich billionaires that work for these aristocrat bloodlines. Underneath them is the governing body. And then underneath the governing body is obviously their assistants, and then you just go down all the way to the lowest form of Jehovah Witness. The New World Order is a name that we give for these aristocrat families. So these 13 bloodlines, okay? And the Russells are one of these bloodlines. When you research them, learn about them, they're not just affiliated with Jehovah's Witnesses. Jehovah's Witnesses are just, honestly, they're like on the bottom level of their priorities. The Watchtower is an experimental process to create a slave race. If you read books like this that are written by the organization, this is the creation book. If you go on and you look at page 264, okay, you can see this photo here. And you can see that they have Jesus, and behind Jesus you have two men having anal sex. So let me see how well you guys can see that. Right. Now, there's nothing mentioning this in this book, why they're doing that. But Watchtower has things like this, making fun of the Christian religion all the time. And you don't do things like this and print this in your book and make it obvious like this unless you have an agenda, okay? The New World Order is pushing all the transgender movements, all the BLM stuff, and all these, let's say, leftist organizations, because they want to create instability within countries. Because people have civil pride, you're going to have an issue. There's a chance they will uprise. They will choose their country over the New World Order. The New World Order wants a group of people who operate like this, who don't think, who will do what they're told, and don't care about their family or their children or anything. They're completely subservient. They're almost robotic. That is why the organization has survived as long as it has, being as horrific and terrible as it is. Most other church organizations that do have issues with CSA, like the Catholic Church, the way the CSA is performed is very different. It's more hidden than it is in the organization. The organization brags about it on a daily basis. I'm not kidding you. They write magazines saying they abhor child abuse, and then they'll go to court, and then they will represent the sex offender and then tell the judge, well, he's been a great person. He goes door to door. He does everything for the church and his community. He just has this one little issue. And in the mind of the organization, raping children isn't a problem. They don't really care. That's why when you look up things about CSA in the organizational handbook, they don't care about child abuse. It's like you can be disfellowshipped for smoking a cigarette faster than you can be disfellowshipped for raping a baby. And I'm not saying this to be dramatic. I'm saying this as being honest and true. If you read the governing body's approved documentation for their company policies, known as the shepherding the flock of God, they actually say that individuals can watch child porn with no repercussions, as long as they're not sharing the child porn with other members. Now, I want you to digest that for just 1 second. Now, I told you about these people uprising against, the tyranny of their leaderships, like you saw with Russia and many other ancient societies. And the question is, why has no one done this? Why has no one ever went to a kingdom hall, went up to the person who violated their daughter or their son, and beat their ass to the point of almost death in front of the kingdom hall? I mean, this happens on a day-to-day basis, folks, when normal human beings find out that someone had, molested their kid. Like, you'll see all these pedophiles get their ass beat by fathers. Why do witness fathers not love their children? That's the question. And that's going to be the name of this video. Why witness fathers don't love their children. Because they don't. If you're a witness and you're willing to abandon your child because they don't believe of your imaginary friend, you don't love your child. If you are willing to let people molest them with no consequences and then tell the police that they're good people, that they just made a mistake, you don't love your child. If you're willing to shun your family member because they don't believe in this particular belief system that you have right now, which will change in a few years. Because if you look at Jehovah Witnesses and you think about Jehovah Witnesses and what they believed in when I was a kid and then what they're teaching right now, it's hard for me to even talk to Jehovah Witnesses now because they're like, we don't believe that anymore. And I'm like, when I was a kid, you told me, that that was the Word of God and it was absolute truth, divine, and now you're, we don't believe that anymore. That was then, this is a new light. Are you out of your fucking mind? You told me that was divine knowledge, and then it doesn't work out, so you have to use new light in order to recreate this divine knowledge because you were wrong. So it was never divine, it was never true, and here you are making an ass of yourself, telling me that I'm a fool because I don't know all your idiotic belief systems that you change constantly because they're so stupid and so idiotic that people can't believe them for very long because people start catching on to the mistakes. And then you got to switch it around and make new light. I'm serious. If you are a member of the organization and you're watching this video, why have you not, because you claim that the organization is the one true religion, why have you not excommunicated the governing body for all their sins against humanity, all the sins against your children, all the sins against God himself? Altering the Holy Scriptures, they have admitted to doing it. New light means false prophecies. Having sex with children is a violation of everything the Bible states and says about marriage and about fornication. And it even says that you should stone them outside the walls. Does the Watchtower do anything to stop CSA? No. You show me one fucking case where the organization turns in its own members for child abuse. That does not have a worldly person involved that has a witness and another witness being victimized. You will never see it because it's never happened. What do you have to say about that? Nothing. You're going to be silent like a little bitch because you're a bitch. And every fucking one of you who let your kids get hurt in this organization, you're a fucking coward and you're a bitch. And I'm going to tell you that, and I'm going to say it every time I speak, every interview I do. I'm going to call you guys out. Because you're little bitches.